Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another video from the Canal Sidings Model Railway channel. This is really just a progress update on where I am with the bridges. And as you can see, they are now sitting in place. The first time ever that both bridges have sat together on all their correct parts. I've just got this far today. Just finished weathering the pillars, but what you can see is at this end, this is the end of the bridge section. This piece here all the way across to here is the bit that lifts out, and the two end piers, which I had intended to 3D print, but then decided that that probably wasn't the way the bridge would have been made in the first place. So I decided to go for a couple of square pillars at each end, which would be sort of filled with rubble and concrete, and would give the bridge its complete support at the ends. These are just made from second-hand bits of 4mm MDF glued together with PVA. The bridges actually sit down into them, and they will always be loose. They won't move this way, but they just lift out. And then there will be sliding rail joiners to provide the power to the tracks. So the bridges will always be removable and will always be able to be worked upon separately from the scenery, and the scenery will be able to be worked upon separately from the bridges. That's an important thing, but it has given me some problems, which we'll go into a little bit later. So yeah, this is two bridge piers. There is a gap down the middle between them down there, where you can see that coming out, which is probably prototypical. There's another one at this end, which I don't know if you can actually see, but, and there would be a concrete slide down from the top to the bottom at each centre point. I have actually got one of them in. I've got a piece of wood sitting in there which you can't see, and the other end is done exactly the same way. Second-hand pieces of 4mm MDF all glued together with PVA, and all the notches and everything just cut to allow the bridges to sit in, and to align left to right and forward, front to back every time you put them in. Obviously the sliding rail joiners will align the rails anyway, so we're not too worried about that, but it was important to do it anyway. Some of the problems that I've got, oh, before we go that far, I have actually, as you see, finished my 3D printed bridge piers, and they now have this material from Knock, which is an embossed type material. If you can see that, I can't see what you can see at the moment, but it's embossed, which is quite nice. It's only paper, photographic paper, but it does give it a little bit of a relief, surface relief, and it hasn't gone onto the pillars perfectly, because for some reason the pillars are not perfectly parallel sided, and they're not all the same, so I'm not really sure what happened there. I think that's the vagaries of my 3D printer when printing something this high. Now that was where it started on the bed, and it printed as it went up and finished up 6 inches away from the bed. So there probably are some vagaries of 3D printing which I'm not fully aware of yet, especially on a cheap printer, which is what I bought. You can see the bridge shoes are now in place, and I've painted them a representation of a dirty shade of red oxide, which is what I would have thought they would have been, as they are made of metal. At the ends I've just put the bridge on masonry pads, and you can only just see them, but that's the way it is with most bridges. Unless those pads are very tall, you can hardly see them. Okay, as I say, the track will be powered by fish plates, I'm not sure whether I'll do it from both ends, although there will be fish plates this end and this end that slide on. Well, one end will slide on, the other end you will slide the bridge into. That's the intention. I'm not sure whether I will power it from both ends, i.e. have DCC droppers on both lots of wires. Yeah, on both lots of rails. I've got to work that one out. But they are three separate sections because each one of these is likely to be a signal stroke braking section, and they are also going to be powered separately. So the up main will be separately powered from the down main, which will be separately powered from the relief line. And they will only be separated by the 21 watt 12 volt bulbs that I mentioned to you before, but you should then be able to short one out without killing the others. We'll see what happens in that respect anyway. The other difficulty I've given myself is I've worked out much closer now where the signalling is going to be, and as you know, when we played with signalling in the last video, I had a signal placed round about here for the track going this way, and then the braking section started somewhere over there, for the next signal that is. I have decided that that position for the signal will be in this area here, and I will have an overhead gantry at each one of these low points. That's all four of them for both bridges, and that gantry will carry the overhead wires, which I don't intend to model, but they will be assumed to be there, and it will carry the signals, which is not actually as unusual as you might think. I've been looking a lot at that, and you quite often find signals hanging from the same overhead gantries where the overhead electrical wiring is done. So I will have a signal on the furthest track for trains travelling in that direction. I'll have a signal on the next track across, which is the down main, for trains travelling in that direction. And then for the relief line, the best point for position for signals is here for distance purposes, and I will have two signals, one facing that way, one facing that way, on the same overhead line equipment mast. Now I've got to get power to those signals. Each signal requires 4 cables, 4 wires, and I've got 4 signals on there, so 16 wires I've got to get out to power the signals. I'm not putting the sensors on there. The sensors can go on the ends. We just have to live with where the sensors are, and that is a little bit of a worry, because when you're travelling in this direction on this track, then you are a long way from the nearest sensor that says the train has left the section. So that's a compromise that I'm going to have to make in order to be able to accommodate my signalling on my short 36 feet of track that runs around my room. As you saw last time, the trains run relatively slowly. No matter how fast you set the controllers, the trains run relatively slowly because they spend a lot of their time speeding up, slowing down and stopped while they're waiting for the next train to clear the section and the section to become vacant. But that's a couple of problems. So I'm going to have to put sensors, one here probably, one here, one over here, and one over here, for the signals. They won't be braking sensors. The braking sensors will be way off the bridge, but the signal sensors will not be in the ideal positions. But I don't really want a sensor hanging down from under the bridge, and hanging it down into a bridge pier isn't the easiest of things, because then where do I get the wires out? They have to come out the bottom. I don't want to be doing that. And I'd have to have a hole in the top, and you'd be able to see it. At the moment I can see a big clear space here. You'd be able to see a rather overscale piece of electronics. So there are a few problems to solve. My intention is to try and do something like have a relay box somewhere at the end here, which is removable, and the cable comes into the relay box and you push it back down onto a 4-way connector. So in other words, you plug the relay box in to the landscape, and then the wires from that connector go off out of the back of the scenery at the ends, and then get connected where they need to be. A lot of compromise has got to go on here, but I think basically we are going to be able to achieve it. Just that there are a couple of sensors that are a bit too far away from the signals. I thought the sensors miles away from the signals were a good idea at one point. I've since changed my mind and think that the best place is, if you've got, for travelling that way, if you've got a signal here, the best place for the sensor is just past it. But of course on a bridge, no way I can do that. Anyway, I thought I'd just let you see that I'm making some progress. What this also shows me is that it's very dark in here now. The sky has now got shadows on it, which of course we can't have. So what I'm looking at doing is down the back here, down on the back of here, so somewhere where you see that sticking up, I'm going to put, just not that, I'm going to put a set of LEDs, a strip of LEDs, which will effectively light the sky up for me. And they will completely then eradicate those shadows, because they'll be brighter than the lights around everywhere else. So that's something that I'm looking into the possibility of doing. I have been held up now because the next thing I want to do is to fix these into place. But doing that up here, I can't see where they are because they can twist in this direction, and they need to be lined up properly with the gap between the bridges. And that's quite hard to do from here because you can't see the backs. You can try using a mirror, but it doesn't help that much. So what I want to do is get this whole thing now down onto the bench so that I can fit these into their correct positions and glue them there. But there's my problem. While standing up here, this is completely rigid because it's sitting on the metal of the speed frame shelf. But what I hoped was that this piece of foam and this piece of hardboard would be rigid enough. Unfortunately, in the length that it is, it's not, and it does flex. And what I don't want to do is fix these into position when this is flexed. This is the position it's got to be in. If there is any flex in it now, that's the way it will be when it sits in position. So in order to be able to get it to always sit right, I need to fit them when it's in that position. So what I need to do is put some strengthening pieces along under here. I can't find it, there's one there. I want one to go from there to there, and one to go from the other side of that piece of wood to there, on this side and on that side. And what I shall use is some more 19 by 19, which is the material I've used in a lot of places for the corner braces, plain timber. And I had an 8-foot length of it sitting out in my hallway. It's been sitting there for about a year. When I come to use it, throughout its length, it's got a perfectly formed 30-degree twist. Absolutely useless for what I want, because I want it dead straight. So I found that out Saturday morning, and I thought, oh, I'm not going to bother to go out today. I'll be in St Ives on Monday, so I shall go into West End on Monday morning and see if I can get a straight length of 19 by 19. And then I can get the whole thing down onto the bench, which is the whole idea of making it removable, so that I can work on it on the bench, and I can remove these so that I can get into there easy to make the river and the banks and the slopes and the road and all the slopes down, and I can wire it easily because it's all going to be wired from the back. You get the picture, I think. It's there's a lot more work to do on it yet. So that's the progress so far. I am moving forward. I still haven't weathered the bridges yet, and until I've weathered the bridges, then I won't be putting the tracks on or the walkways and railings that I've made. But that probably is going to be my next job, although it's 3:30 on Sunday afternoon now. I'm going away. I'm going to get the wood on Monday. I shall probably come back and actually do the strengthening of this first, because then I can actually get the piers fixed in place. This pier and this pier are solidly fixed. They're glued to the end and they're glued here, so they're not going anywhere. But these are not yet fixed at all. Anyway, I've waffled along enough about that. I'll just say thanks for watching, and I'll be back with another update as soon as possible. Bye for now.